Welcome to the Giving Room with Dave and David, where we encourage remarkable generosity, from amazing stories to easy to understand discussions about tools for giving that may just be right for you.
Welcome to the Giving Room podcast. I'm Dave.
And I'm David.
And we are thrilled today to have an incredible guest, Larry Absheer. Hello, Larry. Welcome.
Hello. Glad to be with you today.
We're going to be diving into a bunch of great topics, kind of covering generosity and kind of hearing more about Larry's story. David, would you want to introduce Larry for us?
Yeah. So Larry and I have just basically been introduced in the last 6 months through a mutual friend in St. Louis in ministry. And I've just got to hear a little bit about Larry's story. I thought if our listeners and viewers could hear his story, it'd be encouraging to them. You know, some of the things that he goes through and has gone through, and his journey of generosity himself would be helpful to other folks. So that's what we want to do. We're just going to ask him some questions about, how he processes giving and thinks through it. We talk about the purpose of our podcast is to, encourage cheerful, intentional, and strategic givers. I think Larry's been that. So we're going to learn a little bit more about how. But Larry, could you just tell people a little bit about you? We said your name, but you can tell people sort of where you are, where you're sitting, what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been from St. Louis all my life, and I've had a great and enjoyable business career. I've been the CFO of a couple different organizations, and now I'm semi-retired, and I continue working for one of the organizations that I've been involved with for many years as the CFO, and now I'm the director of advancement. And most people understand that to be kind of a development position, and which it is. And I manage the planned giving programs of our organization and the foundations and things like that. So I've been very involved with donors in recent years. I've been doing this director of advancement gig for about 5 years now, but I can understand how the donor's perspective, because for whatever reason, I've become a donor myself over the last many years and really gotten into the generosity thing. So I kind of come at things from both sides of the table. So I'm really enjoying what I'm doing right now. So I work for a not-for-profit, which is the Missouri Athletic Club, and we have foundations, and so it's a great fit for me.
Okay. And you actually served there as the chief financial officer before, right? So you were in a sort of fiscal officer role.
Yeah, I was there. I was the CFO for about 22 years. Wow. And just to give you an idea of the size of the organization, we have about 400 employees. We have 2 locations, and we're probably one of the most prominent private clubs in the country. So we're a city athletic club, and we have a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. It's a fun place to work.
That's awesome, Larry. Thank you. And as we kind of dive into this podcast, one of the things we are really trying to teach or talk about is how generosity is a learned skill. It's not something that you just, there are those who have a gift in it, maybe a natural talent, so to speak. But for a lot of us, becoming intentional and learning how to be generous is something that takes time. It takes practice. It takes figuring things out, and really a lot of kind of careful thought. And you mentioned you've been both. You somehow became a donor. I would love to know, Larry, kind of what drives your motivation to be generous, and would love to kind of hear how you kind of came to being a generous person and how that process looked like for you.
Right. Well, let me make the point, leveraging off what you just said about learning to be a donor. Somebody said once that tithing is the training wheels for generosity, and I think that's really true. A lot of Christians tithe, but a lot of them don't, and I would recommend. I think it's a very key part of a person's a Christian walk to get into the habit of tithing. And when you tithe, that kind of really gets you into the mode of sharing your wealth with the Christian world and trying to make an impact on what's going on in the world through your tithing. I used to, I got pretty serious about it. I think the easy way to tithe is to just, if you're employed, just have 10% or more taken out of your paycheck and be directed to a separate account, so you know exactly what the amount of the resources are at any given time that you need to be giving away to the work of Christian work. So that's how I got into the mode, and then it just grew from there. And I found that giving is fun. I call it the joy of magnanimity, and I wish that more people would get involved in giving, because it is such a satisfying thing to. It's a joy, at least for me. And I talk sometimes about how Solomon in Ecclesiastes warns against hoarding our resources. I find a lot of people just hoard their resources for whatever reason. I guess for security. But as Christians, I think we have a reason to have a different perspective on our resources, and that they belong to the Lord, and that we're just directing them into the ways that He wants us to share those resources.
Yeah, I love the idea that tithing's a baby step, and for folks that may not even be in a church background that could listen to us, that's sort of a regular church discipline, right? Like it's a spiritual discipline of giving some percentage. 10%'s been sort of a thing that came out of the Old Testament, right?
Yeah.
On a regular basis out of your income, as Larry mentioned, to your local church, if you go to church. So that's the idea there. And I think that is a great first step for a lot of folks. We've kind of even encouraged people in the past that, if you see a need that needs met, this may not even be, charitable in the tax favored sense, but you just see a need. There's something you have that you're not using and somebody else needs it. That actually could be a charitable time too, right? Like it's just, let's not hold everything we have so tightly, and let's sort of be aware of when God may be putting somebody in our path that could use something. That could be money, that could be a car, that could be any number of things, that could be groceries. And I think just any of those steps help. It sounds like you started this a long time ago, though, as far as your journey of generosity.
Yeah, many years ago, and I think that's a good point that you just made. When we see a need, it's good to just step up and try to meet that need. But a lot of people would say, "Well, I just don't have, I can't afford it." Well, what I would say, especially advice to younger people, I would say try as early as you can. Start finding ways to make money and invest in your earning power. Save and invest wisely, so that later on you can personally be able to give. So this is really a forward look, and I'm just telling people the joy of giving is just fantastic, and we have to prepare for it. So we have to develop our earning power, our resources accumulation. And I like the quote from George Bernard Shaw, where he says, the first duty of a person in life is not to be poor, because you cannot provide for yourself and your family, let alone give money away if you're poor. So we need to develop those resources so we have them to be able to give away.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I like that. Don't be poor. Note to self. Right there. Right. Yeah, that's heard. I got it. Well, as far as giving decisions, and it sounds like, again, you've started this from early time with Tithe, and then it's evolved into things that I think we'll keep talking about. But what goes into how you make a giving decision, as far as like who the organization is and why would you be involved? Any sort of like, whether it's a list of factors or just things you consider, situations?
Well, certainly the mission of the organization is the preeminent factor. What are they trying to accomplish? And can I relate to that mission? Is it something that resonates with me? And beyond that, how impressed I am with the organization's leadership and their outcomes that they've already achieved. I like when I come across an organization that seems to have strong leadership, they've accomplished a lot of good things. I like to reward that organization for already have done some good things. They're organized. They're on a good path. But I also like to reward them when I see that their development activities are really well developed, and they're doing a great job in terms of cultivating donors and following up with them, thanking them appropriately. Other factors, whether or not the organization seems to need resources. There are some organizations that, while I'd like to support them, I kind of shy away from them because I understand that they already have ample resources. And I'd rather direct some of my resources to organizations that really have a need. And then whether or not an organization has made good use of the resources in the past. There are some organizations that get some negative publicity because of unfortunate expenditures they've made. You don't become aware of those all the time, but we had to be aware of how the organizations have used resources in the past. And then, of course, the basic thing, whether or not I was asked. Some organizations cultivate the relationship with prospective donors, but then they never get around to actually asking you for the money, which is amazing. But you have to be asked. And then I'm going right down a list of things. I hope that's okay.
No, that's great. Keep going.
How easy the organization makes it for me to give. I mean, one of the basic things, if I get a solicitation letter in the mail and there's no return envelope to send a check back, I mean, that's not very easy. I've got to go and write out an envelope and put a stamp on it and all that kind of thing. Then let's see. If there's a development person involved in calling on me, what kind of an impression have they made on me? Or a good one or a bad one? Have they treated me with a lot of courtesy and they showed a lot of interest in me? If we're in a personal situation face to face, have they made good eye contact with me? Eye contact is one of my big things in life when we're developing relationships with people. We have to look people in the eye and make them feel validated, and that that's focused attention. And if a development person is practiced at that kind of thing, I'm just very impressed. And then I have to mention this. Once I give a gift, I'm one of those people that really wants to be thanked appropriately. I think a lot of organizations fall down in this area. I think it's so important to thank a person timely in multiple ways and over time. It's just such an appropriate, it's appropriate, but it's a needed thing because when I, as a donor, when I give money and I'm thanked appropriately, that lays the groundwork for future giving. And if I'm not thanked appropriately, it just builds into my whole impression of what the organization is about and how they behave and how they treat their donors. So it's just so important. It's a step in the right direction. And if I'm not thanked appropriately, then it kind of detracts from the possibility of future giving decisions. But the main thing is what the Lord wants you to do. And you have to sometimes overlook the mistakes that organizations and their development people make because we're all human.
Yeah, I was just going to say that sometimes it's a human thing, but sometimes it can be a resource thing, but a lot of times it's just a training and knowing how to do it. It's interesting, all the things you said, even the being thanked. And just from the time I've been able to chat with you a few times, like I'm confident that that's not an ego thing. What that is a relationship thing. Because even when you're talking about eye contact and some of the other things you mentioned, that's really just about, can I actually connect with this person, which is then how I'm going to connect with this organization, right? So I've got to be able to relationally make a connection. So that it seems like a lot of things you mentioned is just really, it's almost interpersonal skills. This is just like, can you be a real person and actually connect with me as a person, not think of me as a checkbook or an ATM or a stock portfolio, and then we'll just see where the relationship goes.
Well, and I think even building on that, right? Because we're talking to people that are thinking about being generous in a large way. Yeah. And how do I vet an organization? And again, we've talked even yesterday or in our last episode about the difference between helping and enabling, right? In my opinion, one of the greatest measures on whether you're helping someone or enabling someone is how well they appreciate the gift.
Yeah.
Because if they're just taking it for granted, then They clearly don't need the help. So how you are thanked, how you are appreciated, I think says a lot about how much they actually value you as a donor, value the resources you're giving, and how they're stewarding it. And so I think, it's not necessarily about ego. It's about being responsible. It's about being truly showing that you actually appreciate the donor and that you believe the donor is necessary for the work that you do. And I think that's a really, really important thing to consider, because I know I hear, I don't need to be thanked. Like, well, I need to thank you.
Right.
It's not about whether you need to be thanked or not. It's about the practice of thankfulness. I mean, we're told that give thanks in all circumstances. This is God's will for us in Christ Jesus. Like, we are meant to be thankful humans. We are meant to be show gratefulness. So
gratitude
really
and generosity are joined at the hip.
Right.
That's exactly right. As David was saying, these are all just human relations skills, and we ought to be thanking people whether or not we're trying to get them to give money.
Right.
We should be validating people, expressing appreciation, because so many people in life, nobody thanks them for anything, and that's what we ought to be doing. Those are great points.
Can I ask one more question real quick?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask a question, but I want to just interrupt you real quick. You had mentioned that a couple of things that you had to be asked, and then also, and then kind of at the end, and then you've gone on this rabbit trail. You mentioned that, how's God leads, and I think those two things are super critical to the who do I give to, but how, how in the world did you decide? There's so many organizations that probably approach you. So how do you decide who you're going to give to and how much you're going to give? And I mean, again, we heard you say asked and directed by God, but what else sort of goes into that?
Right. Well, let me say a couple things in response to that. The normal answer to something like that is prayer. And most people, I think, probably in their giving decisions, I would think that they would ask for the Lord's guidance on who to give to and how much. But I have to disclose kind of a personal thing with me. My history is that I don't pray a lot about my giving decisions. And the reason I don't is because I receive these unctions from God, if you will, and probably non-Christians may not relate to this, but I'm asked so many times, this has happened to me so many times when organizations ask me for money, especially in a face-to-face situation. The Lord actually tells me right then, not only that I should give, but how much to give. I can give you numerous examples of the Lord just prompting me. And of course, I pray for prompts from the Lord about everything every day. And I know that's probably not helpful guidance to people trying to make decisions, but I think if you walk with the Lord on a daily basis, minute by minute, you're constantly in touch with Him. And when a giving situation presents itself, it's not surprising that the Lord would prompt us to actually give, and then leading us exactly how much to give. That's what happens with me. I've got so many stories I could tell you, but I would say beyond what I just explained, awareness of an organization and their mission is something that prompts all of us to give. If we're not aware of an organization and its mission, we're not going to have any basis on which to give to them. But I always like to say that awareness always creates an opportunity for action. So whether it's an organization just presenting themselves to me or presenting specific projects to me that I could give to, if I become aware of these things, it presents an opening for action there, i.e. giving. So awareness is a very important thing. We need to make our prospective donors aware of what the needs are.
I'm going to keep going. Sorry. I'm going to cut you off from now on. Now, as far as like amounts, like how do you decide amounts? We've talked to some folks who still have sort of I like to give to as many organizations as I can. And sometimes that means the gifts are smaller because there are many. So even if it's a large amount that's being given, then others are like, I'm kind of drawing back, and I've seen myself increasing the size of my gift because I really, I feel like the Holy Spirit's been nudging me to make a greater impact here. You have a view on that, or has that been an evolution for you as well?
Well, it has been an evolution. I've gotten into the habit with some organizations just sign up for monthly credit card transactions. And that seems kind of an easy way to do it, rather than writing out a check periodically and just have a steady flow of money to the organization. Um, but as I've gotten older and reached the age of where I can give qualified charitable distributions, I like to give larger amounts and just annual gifts as opposed to the monthly ones. So I don't know if that gives people much guidance. It's probably, I don't know if you've talked on previous podcasts about QCDs and how that mechanism can be used. But, with a charitable, qualified charitable distribution, I don't do those for small amounts. I normally have at least $1,000 threshold or higher, because it's just too much work to do a small QCD. But if you want to get involved in started in giving, I think the monthly amount on a credit card is an easy and convenient way to do it. But it's kind of a function of your wealth too. As we get older and we're in a retirement mode, a lot of times we've accumulated more wealth and we can afford to make bigger gifts. And it's also a prompting from the Lord. Like you said, it's an evolution. I started small, and now I'm giving a lot more in terms of individual gifts to organizations. Because I look at, if I give $50 to an organization, I'm thinking, what kind of impact is that? So if I do a 12 monthly for 12 months, that's $600. But I'd like to give gifts that are much larger than that.
And we have talked about QCDs, so qualified charitable distributions.
Yep.
For folks that are 70 and a half or better, they can direct their IRA administrator to send a little over $100,000 this year to the charities of their choice and divide that up. So it sounds like that's what he does. We'll make sure some of those episodes are actually linked in the show notes. So if folks want to learn more about it, they can find those.
Yeah. So I was thinking about your point on the awareness of the organization and awareness of the needs. One of the things as a fundraising professional, it's really hard to get a hold of people. It's really hard to get a meeting scheduled. It's really hard to even have the opportunity sometimes, I feel like, to provide that awareness, even to those who are already supporting organization. And so for you, as you're thinking about talking to people considering being generous, I know there's fundraising professionals out there who are just after money, and there are those who are after care. There are those who do it well, those who don't. But I know in today's world, we are hesitant to communicate with strangers. We're hesitant to communicate in general. Is there any advice or wisdom you'd give to maybe to that generous person or the person considering generosity who's being reached out to by a fundraising professional? Like what are the red flags they should look for? Should they consider saying yes to the lunch? I guess those are some of the questions that I'd love to get your thoughts and input on that.
Well, I think, if somebody invites a meeting or a lunch or whatever, go for it. So if the organization generally is if you'd like to know more about it. The other thing is you can be proactive and seek out organizations that you seemingly might be interested in and want to know more about. I think I have so many organizations wanting me to give money approach me that I don't have to be proactive, so to speak,
right?
Because I've got so many to sort through, just that are coming at me. But I don't know if I can give much advice along those lines. But you have to, if you've got the time to meet with organizations, I would go for it. A lot of us are pretty busy and we don't have the time to meet or agree to meet with somebody who's just contacted us out of the blue.
Right.
But, again, for Christians, the Lord may be guiding us in a certain direction, and you have to kind of listen to that still small voice. If somebody calls you and if you're prompted to meet with them, then I think that's a good thing, because the more we know, the luckier we get. And so if an organization approaches us, we need to know more about them. Once we know more about them, that could lead on to something something good.
Yeah, because it's
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's great, because it's hard to be generous if you're not aware, and so you need to do some homework. You need to do some research, and ultimately, I think too, you can conveniently say, "Hey, I'm not interested in that organization. I don't need to do a lunch," but I think there is a place for that. So I appreciate your input on that.
I've appreciated that when I've worked with other organizations and been coaching their fundraisers. I was like, when somebody says, they're needed, maybe they are giving you, $50 a month or something, and they're like, yeah, but I don't really need to meet, and I'm doing these other things. That's actually freeing for the, for the fundraising person. So I think that clarity that can come from the donor is helpful. So you can either take the meeting if you've got time, as Larry said, and then you can learn more, and you can even ask some questions. And feel free to ask some hard questions with the development person in front of you. But if it's really just not your thing, if the passion point doesn't really line up for you, then I'd kind of free them to move on, right? I appreciate it. I'll probably keep doing what I'm doing as long as I can, but here's my friend. Maybe you throw your friend under the bus and say, they would love to give to you as well. So maybe you can meet with them. I don't know. That'd be a great thing.
That's right. And, you don't want to lead somebody on, if you don't have, like you said, the passion point, if it's not there, you don't want to take up the development person's time if you know there's little or no chance that you're going to be willing to support their organization. And, Dave, you mentioned again about awareness, and I think we may have touched on this earlier. If I'm involved with an organization, I really appreciate them letting me know about specific projects that I can give to and finance. I know that generally organizations need general funds to use however they want to use them, but I just love to give to specific things, specific needs they have, and I will tend to increase my gift if there's a specific project that I'm presented with, even though maybe let's say I was thinking about giving $5,000 or $10,000 to an organization, but if they tell me about a specific project that they're working with, trying to raise money for, especially if I can cover the whole thing, even though it's more than what I was initially thinking about giving, I'm tempted to go ahead and do that because it gives me so much satisfaction that I took care of this sound system for their chapel, or I was able to give $10,000 here to help them educate somebody, whatever the specific need might be. Yeah, it almost makes it more concrete, more real that I'm involved with the organization, helping with something specific.
Yeah, the special projects does that. It creates some definition and context for your gift. And it's true. So unrestricted gifts for operations is always something folks are wanting in the charitable context. And those are good things. But sometimes, and we've shared this with that a project list gives somebody a reason to actually do more than they would normally do. And I'm glad to hear you say that. And I hope that's encouraging to other folks that are donors. There may be an organization you support. They may have a need that you don't know. And that's, again, maybe where increasing your awareness comes in and being able to meet that project.
You mentioned having the list of projects. I think that's if a development person comes to me and they've got a whole list of them with dollar amounts attached to each one, it's like a menu. I can pick and choose.
Yeah.
And you should have a range of dollars. Maybe $5,000 for this, $20,000 for this, $50,000 here. Actual amounts. And I would love to be able to pick and choose things because some of the projects may resonate with me and others may not.
Yeah, so it may be something that even lines up more from a passion or an affinity or even a personal experience. So it helps you relate more to the need.
And I might react by saying, "Oh, you're doing that kind of thing too. I love that. Tell me more, and then I'll give money to it."
That's fantastic. I think that's a good advice, and I'd hope other folks would consider that as a thing. If you're a generous person, this may be a chance for you to sort of kind of go up in your generosity a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and so on that front, Larry, just has there been times in the past where you've made changes to your priorities in giving, and what do you anticipate that looks like for this point in your life as you kind of think through that?
Yeah. Well, as I may have mentioned this earlier, I've been giving larger gifts as opposed to smaller. I like to give larger gifts to fewer organizations. So I'm kind of getting into that mode. There's certain things, if I become aware of an organization getting involved with that I don't agree with, such as quote unquote wokeness, or hiring DEI executives, spending $50,000 or $100,000 on a position that I think is not something that I agree with.
Right.
If I become aware of things like that, I don't want to support that organization anymore. And I've backed off from a couple organizations because of things I've heard about what they're doing in this area. Now, this is kind of a cultural thing, and some people may have a different view, but
well, it's the principle, right, of organizations pursuing things that don't align with your beliefs and values on either side of the aisle, right? And I think that's kind of your point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, I mean, what else can I say about what I want to do going forward? I guess I would say this. I've tried to broaden out my giving in terms of looking forward in terms of more organizations. The bulk of my estate is going to one organization that I'm very loyal to, but I've decided that that's a big number for one organization, and I'm trying to basically over time carve that out a little bit, and maybe to make it 3 or 4 or 5 organizations as opposed to just one.
Mm-hmm.
When you do a will or an estate, you got to get started somehow, and you have to or maybe doing beneficiary designations on a 401k or an IRA. I mean, you have to have something down there. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to die intestate, and have the probate decide where your money's going. So I started with one organization getting most of it, and now I'm gradually dividing that up among several organizations that are worthy.
Yeah, and just to encourage folks, so we have had episodes about both bequest and beneficiary designations. You can obviously link those in the show notes as well. But have those been either a bequest from either through your will or through a living trust, or just to kind of encourage people to have that same programming? What's the mechanism?
What I would say on this is that I really love the whole beneficiary designation way of giving money. It's so easy, and people that aren't used to doing that kind of thing, they don't realize how easy it is. And let's say you've got a 401k plan or a big IRA. It's so easy to make changes, and if you want over time, you don't have to go get an attorney and have your will changed or trust changed. It's such an easy mechanism, and it's like I said earlier, I'm looking for ease of giving. I like to be able to understand how easy it is to give to an organization. I really like that beneficiary designation mechanism.
Yeah, we've shared with folks that as far as beneficiary designations, they are exactly what you said. They're easy. Doesn't involve a lawyer, and even though I am a lawyer, so I'm pro paying lawyers actually. But in this case, we tell folks that one of the advantages of that is no lawyer in this case. Simple form. And then it tends to be, if it's qualified money and you do have other like heirs, the qualified money goes to a charity who doesn't pay income tax versus going to your heir, who then ends up getting a gift and a tax bill. So they don't get as much as you probably thought. And that just tends to be a planning point that some folks miss. So sometimes the qualified asset, like a retirement plan, 401k, 403b, all those things, it's better, your IRA, for that to be the asset that you fuel some charitable giving with, and maybe use some other things for either children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, any other type of family, that so they don't have the tax burden that comes with it.
Yep. Well, this has been fantastic, Larry. Thank you. I really appreciate you providing some wisdom for us, and really wisdom for those who want to be generous. Some really good filters to think through. And I know I kind of took some notes down here that I thought were really good. And so I'm going to kind of recap here as we think through this. One of the questions you can ask, should I be generous? What should I do here? From Larry, one of the things he said is, do I align with the mission of this organization? Is this an organization I want to give to? Do I believe in what they're trying to accomplish? Simple filter. Don't give to an organization you don't believe in, and you don't believe in what they're doing. Right?
Are there actual outcomes?
And that was the second thing was, am I impressed with the outcomes? Am I pleased with the results of their mission? It's great to have a great cause, but Is the cause seeing fruit? Are there good results? And then he also said, I like to reward strong vision and leadership. So does the organization have a plan? Are they going somewhere? Are they structured well? Don't give to an organization that seems a little like they're unstable, right? You want to give to an organization where you know the resources are going to go well and they're going to go far, they're going to be used well. And that was the next one, stewardship. Do I feel like they're using the resources well? But also, is there a need? Larry mentioned, if there's no need for an organization, I don't want to give there, right? And so is there a need, and is there good stewardship of the resources? He said, do they treat me well? Do they leave a good impression? Does the development person talk to me? Does he make eye contact? Does he communicate clearly? I thought that was a really good reminder of don't give to an organization that treats you poorly. And then he says, do they thank me appropriately? Do they appreciate me? Do they show that they actually are grateful for the resources they're receiving? Are they including me in the results of this work, or are they just kind of using me? Right? I want to know I'm appreciated. And then finally, he said, all of these things can be trumped if God has a different plan. Whatever the Lord calls me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And so make sure you're praying about it and you're sensitive to His leading in this. So I think there's a lot of things that we can take from there as we're processing through that. So Larry, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for joining us. We love having you here. We will list a bunch of links in the show notes to the other episodes, talking about QCDs and those other things. We'll have more information as well there. You can go to givingroompodcast.com to get all those details. Please like, subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And just thank you for pulling up a chair and joining us in the Giving Room.
Larry had told me that he's willing to be, if folks have questions even for him, they can reach out to him. So where can somebody find you, Larry, if they wanted to reach out and even just have a conversation with you that's encouraging?
Yeah, well, I am on LinkedIn, and so that's probably the best way to find me, rather than reciting all my contact information.
Yeah, and we can do that. We'll link your profile as well in the show notes. And I appreciate your willingness to even just be an encouragement to folks. So yeah,
I'd love to talk to anybody about these things.
Can I do one more thing?
Okay,
just one more thing. I'll be quick. I promise. I appreciate the sort of that last point that sort of like God trumps everything. And Larry, you said that you don't really pray about your giving. Now I'm going to actually push back on that, because at the same time, you told me that you're pretty much walking and talking with God on a regular basis. So you've already got this conversation that you probably start from the jump in the morning with the Holy Spirit. And that's what's impacting your giving. So you're not saying one prayer. You're actually saying, Lord, let me know where I'm supposed to go, and your Holy Spirit direct me as these things arise. Mm-hmm. And that, so cheerful, spiritual, strategic,
right,
is the point.
You're pre-praying for it.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right.
That's awesome.
Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, that's spot on.
All right, I appreciate that.
Well, once again, I'm Dave.
And I'm David.
And this is Larry. And we are so thankful you joined us in the Giving Room today. We'll see you next time.
The Giving Room podcast is brought to you by Giving Design LLC, where we help ministries and their donors utilize planned giving to change the world. Go to givingdesign.com to learn more. As always, a huge thank you to River Radio Ministries for sponsoring and producing this podcast. Go to riverradio.com to listen or learn more.